Welcome to River City Media, and we're late because nobody could get anything to work. Below me is Tom, and he couldn't get his sound on. So, welcome, Tom. After an extended absence,
Yeah,
you're back.
yeah, it's good to be back. Dang, asthma didn't do me too well. I get a little cold, and it turns into something a lot worse. So um, I got my handy dandy inhaler that looks like something straight out of The Handmaid's Tale, but uh, I'm ready to go. I did my breathing treatment. I'm ready to talk today. Some good sports topics. So it's good to be back.
Good to have you back.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Good to have you back, Tom. We thought about replacing you, but we had problems with people showing up on time. Over here, that's Robbie Davis, and he probably is going to say something about the Major League Baseball shouldn't be playing now, but I'll let it go.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get to that. But yes, I am. I got my fourth COVID shot yesterday, and I've been soaring in the bed all day. So it's good to talk to people now and get out and see how long I can last.
Well, we'll see. And you're headed for a weekend of fun. Or a week.
Yes, I'm heading to Vegas tomorrow, which is hence the reason for the COVID shot. Trying to avoid getting it again. But yes, I will be in Vegas till early Sunday morning. I wish I could say it was all play, but primarily it's for a trial lawyers university. So I will be spending most of my days in lectures and learning, but then there will be some sports gambling and some tables that will be hit up. That's for sure.
NASCAR?
Well, I won't be there on Sunday, so I'll probably I will be back in Tennessee, which is oddly enough, I don't think you can gamble on your phone in Vegas, so I'll have to be back in Tennessee in time to place my NASCAR bet on Sunday.
DraftKings would miss that money.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're getting through it fast. Of course, Rod's normal open up. He's not here yet. Everybody say, welcome to Rod. Right there. That's Rod. Now, down here, yeah, it's over there.
Here you go.
That's an Ohio State fan, and he thinks Penn State's a big game.
I'd say it's a big game. It's a game you don't want to overlook. You don't want to get too far ahead of yourself.
It's James Franklin.
It is, but when you got a big target on your back, they're going to be gunning for you. So we just keep our fundamentals sound. I think we should have no trouble with this game.
Tom added Penn State has a good secondary after scoring 40-something points on them.
Well, they ran the ball a lot, so that changes the secondary scheme.
At Blake Corum, heck of a running back. All right, guys. Normally, I would wait for Raj for this, but let's talk about the World Series. And what has become the yearly story is how much money Mattress Mack has bet on the Astros if they've made it, or some other crazy bet. As I understand, Mattress Mack this year has an outrageous amount of money on the Astros. Is he the smartest man for all this publicity, or he the worst gambler in the world, Robbie Davis?
So this is where we need Raj. I'm pretty sure Raj has this exact, not necessarily, I don't want to use the word scam, but this marketing kind of genius that Mattress Mack does. Essentially, and I'm gonna butcher it, but something to the effect of he does like a either a tax-free or a no interest free of this first 10 million in sales, and then goes and bets it on a team. So essentially he can't lose. It's just where your money comes from. So kudos to him, and he obviously is smarter at accounting and math than I am, because he does have it figured out to where he doesn't lose. or if he does, it's a very negligible amount. But yeah, it's great publicity for him, great publicity for God knows the sports books. And you see BetMGM, Caesars, Barstool, all those are because they all want, hey, you hedge your bet against him, and that's good for business. So yeah, I mean, it's just a really, really good marketing scheme. And I'm sure, he's in the Houston area, which is, I don't know if you guys have ever been to Houston. It's massive. It goes on forever and ever and ever and ever. Don't know why anyone lives there, but nonetheless, I'm sure there's a lot of mattresses that are sold there. And so, yes, just a brilliant marketing scheme. And also, he on this case, I think he could bet $5 million and make $75 million, or $10 million and $75 million.
I think he bet like 10 or 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Chance to win $75 million.
Yeah.
And sitting pretty on that bet right now with the Astros playing the Phillies.
So here's how I understood it. It was some type of, buy a mattress, whatever, you get up to $3,000 back if the Astros win the World Series. So there's a marketing scheme right there. Get more people in the door. And also, that's going to be a tax deduction for him on that side if they win. So obviously that's helping on that side. But he hedges his bet and he takes, 10 or 11 million. And I think it totaled out to, like somebody said, like 25 million that he has to give back to customers. So he hedges his bet for 10 or 11, and now he stands to make 75. So, and he gets all this free publicity because he's putting $2 million. And so more people are running in buying mattresses, hoping they'll get their mattress for free or 3,000 back. So that was genius and nothing illegal about it. And yeah, I mean, dude could win $75 million. So
and it must
sweet.
be a lot of fun for him too. I mean, think about it.
It's
That's a lot of fun.
Gotta be.
Tom, why does nobody ever bet $75 million on the Tigers to win the World Series?
I'll give you two reasons why, or two words: Detroit Tigers.
Oh,
That money is safely secured. Should never be bet on. Although they brought in Scott Harris as VP, and he made a nice little move today. Brought in the head of amateur scouting from the Tampa Bay Rays, which who knows? I mean, here in Detroit, we're always eating cornbread, drinking the kiddie Kool-Aid, hoping that they would one day win it. But yeah, this guy's a genius, and he started off a couple years ago in the Buccaneers Super Bowl, where he said, he's going to basically give everyone their money back, and if Tampa Bay won, and they did, and so now I think his goal is every year to try and come up with a crazier bet, and lo and behold, he seems to win every year. So, and yeah, reading the story, if you spend $3,000 or more and the Astros win, you get your money back. So I can only imagine. I like to look at the stats just to see what his sales uptick in the last week have been since he initiated this bet. I'm sure it's through the roof. I'm sure mattresses are flying off the shelves, we'll say, down in Houston. But I mean, it's a master plan, and it's worked for him in the past. And all indications are it could possibly work for him this year. So I'm sure he doesn't need the money, but hey, let's get richer.
Before we come off of you, Tom, kind of our one baseball guy here. The story of Bryce Harper making the World Series, getting there. Been a lot of talk about the Phillies and Bryce Harper. Is this noise, or is it one of the better players getting his moment?
Well, I think the one knock on Bryce Harper has always been maybe he wasn't the greatest teammate, we'll say. Obviously, started his career with Washington. He decides to choose free agency and go after that big money in Philly. And that first year he's in Philly, Washington wins the World Series. So I do believe that weighed on him, and it made him really think twice about his purpose in the game. So the one thing I've noticed this year, is just he seems to be a really good teammate. He seems to be really there for his guys and leading kind of the head cheerleader. So as one of the faces of Major League Baseball, it is a good story that, he's going to represent the Phillies in the World Series. I think he's a marketable name, which will probably give some more ratings to the World Series. I don't think anyone's really excited about Houston being there. And Philly's kind of a good representation of the city, real blue collar, just, no one really gave them a chance. And in the regular season, why would they? They kind of they had all the talent in the world and they just underperformed until it got to the postseason, and they really used their skill set, and that would be their power hitting and led by Bryce Harper. So I think it's a good story. It's good for baseball. And they'll need that figure you can kind of put your head on as far as Harper's marketability is concerned, because let's face it, if this thing goes 7 games, Game 7's November 4th. And that's a tough pill to swallow to just your kind of basic baseball fan. So they need something to really drive home viewership. And I really do think the Phillies storyline will do that. Unfortunately, I don't think Philly's going to come away with it, but I didn't think they would get to this point as it is. So, it wouldn't shock me if they went to Game 7 and won the World Series, but time will tell.
Robbie, him talking about this big contract in baseball, it seems impossible that $330 million over 13 years a couple of years ago was the largest contract in sports history, and now you have players turning down $500 million contracts. Baseball salary is getting out of hand. Not out of hand, but it's becoming a number the general public doesn't understand.
Yeah. Well, one thing, just to step back, according to the Google machine, Mattress Mack net worth is around $300 million, so he's doing pretty well. Well, I saw today on I can't remember who was reporting it though, that the Dodgers are serious contenders for Aaron Judge, and it's like they're going to take this already loaded lineup and this already mega cap and then pay probably $500 million for Aaron Judge. And this is where I think the disconnect to where baseball is losing fans is there's only so many teams that can do this, and they've always been without a salary cap. But man, like teams like the Reds, like the Twins, the Tigers, the Royals, it's tough to compete with them. And just I'm not going to take too much time on this, and I know that television contracts are already in place and they're playing for 7-game series, but good God, be able to adapt on the fly. The World Series should be tonight, no football. It should be tomorrow, no football. Travel on Thursday, don't go against Thursday Night Football. Game Friday night, no football. You're going to have to play Saturday against college. Travel on Sunday, Monday. Game 6 and 7 on Tuesday, Wednesday next week. You only have one night against football, and those ratings would soar. By the time the World Series gets here, everyday people are going to lose interest on who's even in it.
If I can cut in here for a second, a good indication of where baseball's at right now, kind of piggybacking off what you said with the Dodgers with their exorbitant salary. The ALDS, the Cleveland Guardians, team payroll, $37 million. And they went up against Garrett Cole, and his salary was $36 million. So that just goes to show you where we're at here as far as some of these salaries go. And also, it doesn't always pan out for those teams that have the crazy salaries. Look at who's home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Dodgers left out in the ALDS, and the Yankees just got absolutely embarrassed against Houston. So it's a game where look at Cleveland. 17 players made their major league debuts this year. So it doesn't always success doesn't always come into play with money. Look at my Tigers. They mortgaged their future for a couple years, giving Mecchie that big contract, and it just never panned out. So it doesn't always work. But if Judge goes to LA, that's scary. And their payroll is going to be through the roof, record breaking.
All right, Brandon, one question. And well, it's a good question to bring up, I think, to both sides of this. The Braves were put out in this, I guess, this divisional round. Would the Braves have got overshadowed in our region, which is the heart and soul of the Braves, if Georgia is number 1, Tennessee's number 3, Alabama's number 6? I almost feel like after last year's World Series run and such a magical thing, even the Braves in the NLDS was kind of like, oh, no, we're in the middle of college football. You can't bother with this right now.
Yeah, it would have definitely played second fiddle, especially in our local region where you guys are and myself, with all the Vols fans around here, just how well they're playing right now.
Yeah, and
what a in Georgia, but Georgia's been good the last couple of years. Georgia was good last year, and I mean, obviously, and the Braves were still a story. So, I still think they would have been in the mix, though. And to be honest, me as not kind of a casual baseball fan, when it starts getting down to the end, that's when I actually start paying attention a little bit more. So I've watched some more baseball, this last half of the month than I have in, probably all year. But it's entertaining though when it comes down, pitch by pitch, and you got a hot team that wasn't even supposed to make the playoffs in Philly. Everyone wrote them off, and bats are on fire right now. Pitching is sustaining, and their offense is just exploding. Now they're going to face, arguably the best bullpen, on the sheet. So we'll see, but I think it's going to be an entertaining matchup. But yeah, to your point, I don't think they'd probably be second behind the Vols in our immediate local region. But I know we would be talking about it on this broadcast if if the Braves were in the World Series right now, that would probably be right next to Tennessee. Probably Braves first, just because it's World Series. So.
Yeah, I know the guy that does the program, and we probably would be talking about the Braves.
Yeah, exactly. I know the guy that makes the agenda. So
yeah.
But the point is, like, could you imagine, like, and I know the NFL's king, and so maybe it's not fair to judge things by that, but even the college football playoff, like, let's take that, say the second biggest sport, second or third biggest. During that week, you're talking about that. It's not an afterthought. The World Series, like, we're already talking about where Judge is going to go next year, or, what's happening. Like,
sure.
They just don't do a great job of putting it out there and marketing it. It's the World Series versus Week 8 of the NFL. It should be the hot topic, but it's not. Yeah,
to your point. I mean, and we've talked about this till, days on end, that the scheduling has been a problem, especially, and it happens with the NBA as well. But
yeah, the NBA runs into it too.
It's an easy fix, really. Just, dodge the nights where there's not, like, no one wants to go watch reruns of Walking Dead, when you could watch a World Series game too. It's like, just make it happen. Like, I don't, keep everyone entertained. So I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you though.
Yeah, because like these baseball teams, they own the stadium, so like there's nothing booked in there. There's nothing to prevent them from playing right now. Get Fox, hey, bump off what you're doing, or ESPN, whoever's got this contract.
Even what was it? I think Harper made a statement. He was like 5 days in between games. He's like, that's way too long. Like, what are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
they're on a heater right now. When you're in baseball and you're on a heater, you want to keep playing and playing and keep that mojo going.
Well,
You do
and
not
that's
want
what
to take
happened
days
to
off and
both
get complacent.
the Dodgers and the Braves both fell victim to that.
Exactly. And we talked about that possibly being a consequence, having to sit out and wait.
Go back to 2006 when my Tigers were in the World Series. They sweep Oakland, and they're off for 7 days before the first pitch of the World Series. And guess what? They got hit hard by St. Louis. They came in there and they put it to them because they lost that momentum. So there's definitely something to be said with momentum, and Philly has it. The difference here is both teams will have the same amount of time off, which will kind of even keel it. So we'll see.
They will, but you look at the postseason. I mean, Astros haven't lost a game, so they're in a little different form. They're almost in cruise control. That's when I think Philly could really sweep up on them, or and take it to a Game 7.
They
now,
haven't
Astros,
It was that
Astros could wake
that
up
Rockies
from
team too. That I can't remember 17 or 07. That Rockies team that got hot and then they cooled down, and the Red Sox they matched a better team, and that momentum got killed, and the Red Sox swept them.
Yeah,
or swept them.
It happens because it's obviously on paper Astros is by far the better team, but as we know in baseball, it is not the better team that wins World Series.
Nope.
All right, let's move on to World Series. I will add this. I think part of what hurt the national appeal of the World Series, no Braves Dodgers. I really think that was very highly anticipated. But I want to move on.
I can see that.
We are 1 week from the college football playoffs. And there's a site that I've subscribed to. It's not on your agenda. It's just released what the projected playoffs would be if they were released right now. I thought there was something very interesting in this. And I want to get your gut reaction around the table when I read this. And I will go from the top down. And if you've got a reaction, just
Are you going 6-1 or 1-6?
1-6.
Okay.
Number 1, 7-0, strength of schedule 84. The Georgia Bulldogs, defending national champions. Justified with a strength of schedule of 84? Don't know, but I think that's going to get better starting this weekend. Number 2, with a strength of schedule of 81, everybody's been critical, but 81, Ohio State, number 2. At number 3, with a strength of schedule of 16, Tennessee Vols. Number 4, with a strength of schedule of 80, Michigan. Number 5, with a strength of schedule of 56, Clemson. And number 6, with a strength of schedule of 7th, and also 1 loss, Alabama.
Oh, whoa, wow.
They're ahead of no loss TCU, which I am shocked by. If the projections came out, would have Alabama 6th, TCU 7th. And the big number is the strength of schedule number for Alabama. Gut reaction.
Is Oregon 8? Is Oregon 8 in this poll?
Oregon would be 8, Oklahoma State 9, USC 10. If this was the playoff poll tonight releasing, how would you feel about it, each one of you? We'll go with Robbie. You seem to have the most ingested so far. What would you think if this was a playoff poll?
I mean, look, it's an entertainment show. Do I agree with it? No. I agree with the top 4. I don't agree with the order, though. I think that based on strength of schedule and who you've beaten, and this isn't a homer play, and I'm not sure they're the best team in the country. I'm just going by what they've done so far. Vols are 1. UGA's got the best win on the season, though, against Oregon, and that was a beatdown. So I got them second. And then you can give me Ohio State, Michigan, either way you want it. I think Ohio State, they scheduled tougher with Notre Dame, but Notre Dame's not very good, but that's not their fault. But the good thing is those 4 are going to play themselves out. Alabama being ahead of TCU, I don't agree with that. Not that I don't think Alabama's not better than TCU, but at this stage, Alabama hasn't beaten anyone really that moves the needle. I think I put TCU over Clemson also, and so I would go. So my rankings would be Vols, Georgia, Ohio State, just because I think they're better on the eye test, then Michigan, then TCU, then Clemson, then Alabama, Oregon, Oklahoma State, and I'm fine with USC right there for right now.
So to look at it a little different, the Football Power Index, which would be part of this, lists the teams as in this order. Ohio State would be the number 1 team. Number 2 would be Georgia. Number 1 would be Ohio State. Number 2 would be Alabama. Number 3 would be Georgia. Number 4 would be Michigan, and number 5 would be Tennessee.
No, look, there's some credibility to that. I mean, if you want to argue it, that's fine, because we did see Tennessee in an unbelievable atmosphere, played probably their A game and only won by 3 points, which could have easily been overtime, and who knows? Like that, yes, Tennessee has a victory, but it was not clearly the better team. If you play in Tuscaloosa, I think Alabama wins.
All right. Tom, what do you think about Ohio State sitting at the top of the power index, but an 86 strength of schedule? And I agree with you, Robbie.
81.
81. Sorry.
I'm shocked that the strength of schedule is only 1 spot higher than Michigan, because as many of you know, I've been a huge opponent of Michigan's schedule choice this year. Thought it was very weak, and I do still think it could come back to bite them in the long run. But let's face it, college football tends to be a popularity contest. Obviously, with Alabama sitting where they're at, ahead of 2-3 teams that are undefeated and who have looked really good this year. So I think that is a certain situation you have with Ohio State. You take last week's game against Iowa. I mean, I don't think there was anybody in the house that thought they looked like world beaters in that first half. They were only, they were up by 16, but they didn't play really well. They came out, they put up 54 points or 56, one of the two. And really the big question was, what's wrong with Ohio State? So when they win by, let's say 46, 42 points, people still question. I think that just goes to show you their talent level and their expectations that a lot of people around the country have with them, albeit they've got, one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the country who seems to be able to flip a switch whenever he wants to play. Okay, boom, 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 4 touchdowns in no matter of time. Stroud has that ability. So it doesn't surprise me that Ohio State sits up there. I don't agree with it. Georgia has not really been pressured a whole lot, though they didn't cover in a couple games. But I think Tennessee's issue that a lot of people have with them as an outsider looking in is, for as good of an offense they have, their defense is a little bit suspicious. And but like we talked before last week, Randall, when they needed to make a stop, they did. And you look at what they've been able to accomplish this year. They've met the challenge each time, and this week's going to be no different. You can't look past Kentucky, beyond Georgia. But for me, I'm not surprised with Ohio State being what some think would be number one. The differential to me from 1 to 4, there isn't much. I don't think there's been a hiccup game, we'll say, by any of them. For all the question marks that Michigan might have had, I think they've kind of been put to rest. I think their biggest question mark could be at quarterback. J.J. McCarthy's very raw, but he's got the skill set to do really well. And when you have the backfield like they have, it gives you a lot more of an opportunity. So I think the differential from 1 to 4, there isn't much. And like Robbie said, Michigan, Ohio State, let's just say they play both undefeated. How far are they going to drop? Georgia, Tennessee will play each other. So, really this is just for knuckleheads like us to talk about the first college football poll ranking. We'll see here in about a month from now where everyone sits because, it might look a lot different.
All right, Brendan, I'll ask you the same question, knowing that you're an Ohio State fan. Is Michigan underrated?
Well, I personally underrated them, especially at the beginning of the season. Are they underrated now? I don't think so. I like the top 4. Here's the thing, though. This is nothing but like media marketing at this point, because you can sit here and make a valid argument for pretty much the top 6. All right. So everybody wants to complain when a team is ranked, preseason ranked, and their rankings stay there and they don't play anybody, and then, they don't move very far. But then when you get teams that get beat that are in the preseason rankings up high, it's like, well, they weren't very good this year and they shouldn't have been ranked that high. And then, so you can go back and forth. It's a never ending circle. It's like, personally, I don't think Alabama is nowhere near what the Alabama we've seen in the past years. They almost lost to both Texas and Texas A&M. Should have lost to Texas if Ewers was healthy. At Tennessee, that I think, they're the most penalized team in college football. And they had 19 penalties for like almost 300 yards or something in that game. And a lot of that effect was, let's say the truth here, Neyland Stadium and the crowd and the hype and, that help cause those penalties. But these kids are different than what you typically see out of a saving team. So, should Alabama have been preseason ranked that high? Like you can make that argument both sides. So I think you have to really just look at the eye test and look at the talent you see. Like, look, we get it. The Big Ten is not as good as the SEC right now. And so some of the teams that we have to play conference or, both sides are just not going to be, like a Kentucky or, some other close team like that. But you still go out and you got to play the game and you got to win. And, you play in some hostile environments when you get targets on your back, like Ohio State and Michigan. And, for me right now, the top 4, let's see, Georgia almost lost to Missouri. And that, that's another one that kind of lingers. Before that game, I thought they were the clear and head favorite by, a mile. And this year, there's not really a clear and head favorite that you can say this team is better than they can not be beat. And really, I'm not a Clemson fan. I want to throw them out of there for sure.
They just don't look very good or put together. They have a quarterback.
Listen,
let
me ask you guys this question.
So whack.
If you put Clemson in the SEC or the Big Ten, could they win it?
No.
No.
Okay.
They
So
might
if
be able
they-
to compete in the Big Ten East.
Could they would probably finish third or fourth overall in the Big Ten, and they would probably finish fifth in the SEC.
So I don't think Clemson this year could win either division of the SEC. They couldn't win the East of the Big Ten. Maybe they could win the West.
Here's the thing though: if they win out, they're going to be in.
Yeah,
because
And it goes back to the popularity contest. It's Clemson.
That's what I'm saying. And
So
they're a big market, and it's Clemson. And same thing. If Oregon wins out right now,
this is my question.
they could potentially be in.
So not who else is going to do what, but let's say Michigan goes to at Ohio State last week of the season. They lose by 21. I'm just picking that number. So Michigan at Ohio State loses by 21. Is that loss? How does that compare to Oregon's loss in a neutral but Atlanta site, losing to Georgia by 46?
So I'm going to make a prediction.
But it's always been what happens late in the season at the end of the year. It has nothing to do with if you're going to lose, you lose early. You always lose early. It has nothing. If you lose late in the year, that's the last thing on people's mind.
So are we all in agreement? Oregon jumps Michigan under that circumstance?
I would, if they went out.
Yeah, if they went out,
Unfortunately, that's the flaw in the system, and
let's face it too. Our Pac-12 representative isn't here with us tonight, but Pac-12 has looked really good. Utah's kind of, except for that they lost bad to UCLA, but
and that Florida loss.
UCLA, who came in as the
UCLA's played strong.
Yeah, and then Oregon, dismantled them. So I think the big Pac-12 hasn't gotten the due they deserve this year. So I think if Oregon wins out, they deserve to be higher than what Michigan.
Clemson's going to ruin this party because Clemson's going to get in, and they don't deserve it.
No.
Yeah.
I'm going to make an outlandish statement. We'll see how it plays out. I fully believe someone gets in, either Ohio State, Michigan, or Tennessee or Georgia, for losing a closer game than the other. And we'll see how it plays out. But I think the fourth team in the playoff is whoever loses that game and looks the best.
That's who it should be.
Yeah.
And I would 100% back that. But is that what's going to happen? We've seen in the past. Sometimes
it will have to be in that scenario. Michigan has to beat Ohio State because Tom was hit the nail on the head. Michigan did themselves zero favors. Their schedule's horrible. They just won't have any good wins.
We tried to have a good schedule with Notre Dame. I mean, they were pre-ranked.
Yeah, I mean, you can't predict when you're scheduling that Brian Kelly's going to leave and there's a new coach.
Yeah.
Ohio State schedule: Notre Dame, Arkansas State, Toledo, Wisconsin, Rutgers, Michigan State, Iowa. To this point,
I know this. I know the stats.
How both of these schools avoided Purdue this year blows my mind.
Michigan,
they play in a different division, so they'll play them every other year. That's kind of how.
Well, I mean, I know that's why they're both be good this year because heaven forbid play Purdue.
Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn, Maryland, Iowa, Indiana, Penn State. Now look, Tennessee played Pitt. Georgia played Oregon. Alabama played Texas. Ohio State attempted to play Notre Dame. Should Michigan be punished for not getting up a one out-of-conference game that's of value?
And I think that is going to be maybe their undoing. If, like, they do what Robbie said, they could do is lose by, an exceptional amount, come the end of the November there. I think the pollsters are going to look at that and say that really, who was their tough, competition they're not going to give any credit if they beat Michigan State because look at where they're at. Penn State.
They got Penn State at home, Michigan State at home, Illinois at home.
They went to Iowa. Iowa's Iowa. Then you look at Illinois, but ultimately, on the grand scheme of things, that's not impressive enough to keep them in my estimation. And the thing about it is, Michigan usually has a really tough, and I have gotten on them in the past about how tough their first or second game of the season is. And this year I don't know what it was. They just didn't do it. They didn't have anything planned. And but I don't like that hanging over their head.
That's part of Harbaugh's contract.
If you look at 2006, we'll go back to a time 2006 game. Chad Henne goes to Columbus. This was probably one of the best Michigan-Ohio State games that I can recall. Michigan loses 42-39. They make a valiant comeback in the fourth. I believe Michigan was 1 and Ohio State was 2.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is all they should have did was flip-flop. The BCS screwed Michigan, in my opinion. I know I'm a Michigan fan, but they did enough.
No, I totally agree.
They did
was
enough
that the
in
year
that
Florida
season.
came up?
What's that?
That the year Florida came up and then smacked Ohio State in the championship
I'm not
game?
sure, but
Yeah, it was. I think it was.
That was a scenario where both Michigan, Ohio State 1 and 2, and for Michigan to drop further because I think they dropped them out of the top 5, which was absurd. So I can see a scenario like that should happen, but it's not going to. I don't think it'll happen.
Robbie, do the SEC teams get rewarded for the conference being good? I mean, just when you play the conference, you're going to play, and not a criticism of the Big Ten. Normally, you get that in the Big Ten, but Tennessee. Let's take Tennessee for example, because I know their schedule off time. They've played at LSU, Alabama at home from the other side. They've played Florida from the east. They're playing Kentucky, a ranked team this week, and Georgia, a ranked team in 2 weeks.
They played Pitt too at Pitt, so
yeah.
That was a tough.
Well, let's not get it twisted.
That Pitt was tougher than Florida, in my opinion. Yeah. Florida was not good this year.
Let's not get it twisted. The SEC teams, look, recruiting rankings say one thing, the polls say one thing. The elephant in the room, and bad play on words for Alabama, but it's our television partners, right? Like, look, ESPN. I would be shocked if it's a 2-loss SEC champion, a 3, like that team's getting in because of who their television partners are, and they're going to make. And so, yeah, so ESPN, like, well, SEC, they do have the best teams, especially this year, the collection of them from top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to be ranked more because there's going to be more buzz about them. If it's a 23 ranked team versus a 26 ranked team, it's much better for TV for them to be ranked 23.
Yeah, especially with the new Big Ten deal coming up. So,
yeah,
and
we're
going to see a lot more of that politicking going on later. But I think, if they go to didn't they sign for a 12-team or something or talk about
the playoffs? Yeah, it's expanding.
Yeah.
But ESPN's still going to have the broadcast rights. And so, at least till the next tier.
Yeah, they're going to advocate for their people in there. I mean, you can't have anything nice without politics. So
yeah, but I mean, but with that being said, look, Tennessee, they beat at LSU, they beat at Pittsburgh, they beat Alabama. Let's say they beat Kentucky, and then look, the winner of the Georgia-Tennessee game, in my opinion, I think they're in. I do. Even especially if it's Tennessee and their only loss is to a team they've already beaten.
I agree. Yeah, if Tennessee beats Georgia and they lose to Alabama in the SEC championship, they're both in.
Yeah, because how can you say those aren't the two best teams?
Yeah, well, and
two of the
again,
best 4.
they want 2 SEC teams in there. If there's any come hell or high water, they can do it and make it look legit on paper. They're getting in.
Could you have the first ever
2 SEC, 2 Big Ten?
yes.
Wouldn't that be sweet?
Could you have,
I think those
I don't
are
think
the 4
so.
best teams, but
I do too.
the schedule, Michigan's schedule, I just
Well,
don't
and that's
think
the thing. It's like,
especially with Clemson and TCU. TCU needs to lose, and Clemson needs to lose, and just get at least compare one loss to one loss. I don't want undefeated ACC and an undefeated Big 12 with these shit division or shit conferences, and then you just get in because you don't play anybody.
Well,
it's such a
if you get a Chuck Woolery 2-2 SEC Big Ten team in the college football playoffs, what does that look like for the teams outside looking in that are thinking about maybe joining the Big Ten
super conferences.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, this makes it even all more the reason why we need to.
This is why you should.
yes.
Look, you go to the end of the year, it's just like we were talking about earlier, and you talk about, all right, you had a close loss, but it was the end of the year, and all of a sudden you're out, and you've got this, Clemson team that is garbage, in my opinion, this year. Just slides in because they're undefeated record. It's like, it's so biased, and I try and take all of that out of it and just look at the eye test, actually watch the games, look at the talent on the field, and make judgments from that. But apparently that can't happen when 80% of college football people know what's going on.
And there's another thing, like I said, just the money thing. As a college football, say they go where the money's at. They want the money. Is there a school out there that travels as good as Michigan? That anywhere you go, representation. I'm just saying, like if it's about money, wouldn't you want that team representing?
Sure.
Michigan travels well.
They do.
Domination in Miami last year. I mean, it was a good percentage of that Michigan fans.
So
but
Clemson's got at Notre Dame, Louisville, Miami, and South Carolina. So 1 road game left at a mediocre Notre Dame game, then 3 at home. I don't see how any of those teams beat them.
And somebody gave them a number 1 ranking. They got 1 number 1 pick in the AP.
He must be an alumni.
Has to be.
All right, guys. We're about an hour in. I want to run through a few games before we get to Bet Your Nuts. And another little segment I want to get in, which is some good news from college sports. First of all, let's start with a game that normally means a whole lot, but I've been to this game, and the atmosphere is just unreal. They split the stadium down the middle. Half of it is red and black. The other half is orange and blue. There is nothing like what used to be called the world's largest cocktail party. But is there any chance Florida can go to Jacksonville and beat Georgia? And Robbie left. Sorry. That was a Robbie question. Anyone else? Tom?
I mean, you look at
I'm back.
Anthony Richardson. He's kind of the wild card. You have a quarterback that has the ability to make plays with his legs, and I think the only way they have an opportunity to possibly get a win is with Richardson running the ball. He's going to be forced out of the pocket quick. We all know Georgia has a pretty stifling front defense, and that will be the one way that Florida could possibly have a chance. But other than that, no, I don't see it. I don't see it happening.
Robbie, anything on or Shane, either one of you, Michigan or Florida, Georgia?
I mean, Georgia's a 22.5-point favorite. Look, this game can get weird. There's been some upsets in the past. There's been some taunting penalties early. But in reality, man, Florida's just not that good. They're 1-3 in the SEC, 4-3 overall. Like Tom said, unless Richardson just goes nuts and has a game of his life. But even then, I think Georgia can control the clock enough to keep him off the field. This would be a gigantic upset, in my opinion.
Well, evidently, if you go to Alexa and ask her when is the World Series, she'll say in 2022, the Philadelphia Phillies win the World Series.
Ooh.
Somebody was smart enough to hack that. Brandon.
Florida Georgia line.
Do what?
Is that what you're asking?
No. You got anything on Georgia, Florida?
Yeah, absolutely I do.
Go ahead.
Don't
So,
you never ask.
all right, who do you think's a better team, Missouri or Florida? Question for the poll, the
Florida.
guys here.
Florida.
Okay,
Florida.
Georgia almost lost to Missouri.
Mhm.
Can they lose to Florida? Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's very possible. And I think Tom hit the nail on the head. Richardson's the key. He's got a very high upside. If they don't account for him, he can throw the ball pretty well too. And his completion percentage, I think it's somewhat low, but it's the game of his life right now. So can they beat them? They have nothing to lose. Could I see that happening? Absolutely. Do I expect it to happen? Not really, but man, I'm rooting for it. I can tell you that.
Who's at more risk of a look ahead game, Tennessee or Georgia?
Georgia.
Yeah.
Tennessee also.
I
It's
think
the first time they've been here in since 2008 in this type of position.
Yeah.
Tennessee has nothing to lose right now. They're on fire. They're rolling. I mean, they've already beat Alabama. They've had their season Super Bowl. Like, no offense to you guys in the fan. Now, look, I know you guys want to win and go as far as you can, but if you don't, would you call that a losing season or a bad season?
Yeah, it's house
Absolutely.
money from here on out.
Exactly. It's house money right now. Now,
we've-
Georgia's they've had some slip ups and they've been exposed. So watch out. Florida could do that. And what does that scenario look like? If Florida beats Georgia, now what are we talking about?
we're talking.
I mean,
LSU.
yeah, exactly.
Well, now you're
Trash.
talking about two Big Ten teams being a possibility.
Yeah,
If
we
Georgia
flipped
lost
the
to
script
Florida,
a little
then
bit, huh?
Georgia beat Tennessee, then Alabama beats Georgia, then Alabama's a standalone. Now
Right.
it gets crazy.
Now, no, there's all kind of reckless speculation we could do, but we'll see. Now, don't put your money on Florida, guys, unless it's just a money you intend on losing. But
We call that
Man.
chain money.
I
might sprinkle a little on the money line.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no hope, but Michigan plays Tuck is coming.
Oh my God.
Is this going to be a 40-point blowout?
Probably.
Well,
Nobody's got a story on this one. do they?
Well, Michigan is infamous for laying an egg. And this particular week, Donovan Edwards had to, get in front of the camera and say they were going to win this week. Should Michigan win? Yeah, they should. Are they a better football team? Not even close. But this rivalry has really gotten heated in the last few years, specifically the last 2 years. I think Michigan losing last year when they dominated a good portion of that game, if not for a very questionable call in I believe it was the third quarter when Peyton got sacked and his ankle hit the ground and they called him down. Inadvertently, Ojabo got the ball in the end zone, scored a touchdown. If that call would have stood, I think the the result would have been different. But needless to say, they had Kenny Walker, who played out of his mind. I thought he earned the Heisman after that game. But I think Michigan is not forgetting that game. And I think it still weighs on them, even though they did go and win the Big Ten championship. So I think there's a lot at stake in this game. And I think Michigan needs to come out and really play like they don't normally do. They have tendencies to get a lead and play to not lose. I think this is a week where you need to get a lead and build on that lead. Take a little page out of the Ryan Day book of offensive play calling and just run up the score because these Spartan fans, God bless them, but the whole Tuck coming needs to be put to bed because Tuck's going to be leaving Ann Arbor with a loss.
I have been on the side of saying Tuck is the worst hire in college football, and we will see.
Not named Jimbo Fisher.
I think it's worse than Jimbo Fisher.
It could be.
I agree.
The next games, I think, are the 3 games that really could play part of a potential huge upset. Well, I don't know if this one's a potential huge upset, but Oklahoma, Kansas State, I think, is a really good football game. Kansas State goes unnoticed every year until they're 7-1, 6-2. Taylor Martinez, the Nebraska transfer. This group is a good football team in Kansas State.
And it's being played at Kansas State?
It is, but Adrian Martinez is questionable. He as we know, he got injured the last game, so I think that's kind of what's playing with the line right now. It's looking like he's going to play, but, if he doesn't,
It's a whole different.
I mean,
That's not.
it's a whole different ball game, and Oklahoma State has been pretty good on the under, being the underdog. So I wouldn't count Gundy out quite yet. If Martinez plays, I think K-State's got it.
I'm assuming he does play, and I'm assuming he's healthy, but that's kind of been my
Right.
operandi all week. The last thing I read is he was likely to play.
Right.
So,
But, is he 85%? Is he 100? And that's going to have a little bit of an effect on the game. But, I mean, he's definitely a better decision maker back there for K-State. So we'll see.
Tom or Robbie, we didn't get you anything on this. We'll come to Tom. K-State, Oklahoma State.
Are you talking to me? I think this is going to be an interesting game. Sorry, I had a little sneezing fit. Oklahoma State, really well coached, but it's in the Little Apple. K-State's favors, even though being ranked lower. I think this is one of these that Mike Gundy wins, and you're just still like, why can't they get over the hump? But I'll take the Cowboys in this one.
Outside of the Tulane upset, K-State's played pretty good. But Tom, what's your thought?
I like Oklahoma State here. A little foreshadowing for Bet Your Nuts. I think Oklahoma State has really proven that their defense, although questioned, has held up when they need it to, and they've put up the points. And they're going to need to come back and get this game if they want to keep up, in the rankings. So yeah, I like Oklahoma State here. For like what Brandon said, where's Martinez? Is he 85%? Is he 90%? They're going to key on him, so there'll be a lot of blitzing. And Martinez is the type of quarterback to, a guy they rely on his legs to make plays. You take that out, I think that there goes about half of your offensive production. So give me Oklahoma State to go down there and pull it off. Them being an underdog kind of surprises me. But the odds makers know more than we do. So,
Well, look, I mean, they were underdogs at Baylor.
mm-hmm.
They were underdogs against Texas last week. They almost beat TCU in overtime. I mean, you put Gundy as an underdog, especially higher ranked. Man, it's hard to bet against him right now.
And another thing, he's a man. He's over 40, so that makes it even more dangerous. Greatest quote,
well
quote
said.
in sports
Well
history.
said.
I'm a man. I'm 40. That still to this day, greatest.
It's up there.
Next
sure.
to Jim Mora in playoffs.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's my favorite one.
Those are go down in history.
All right, let's move on. Ohio State got to go on the road to Penn State. Penn State historically plays better in Happy Valley. After getting raked by Michigan, can James Franklin put together enough to make this game close? Huge number. I was almost surprised by the number. I expected double digits, but I just looked on my app, 16 and a half. I thought 12 and a half, 10 and a half, 11. I thought I'd be there. Tom, you are the anti-Ohio State guy, so I'll let you take the first words.
Well, James Franklin proved what I think everyone knew this week. He might be the biggest, sorriest loser in all of college football, going on his little rant about the tunnel issue, that took place a couple weeks ago here in Michigan. But they looked pretty good last week. They looked really good last week, Penn State. They coming off a dismantling here. They showed a lot. It helps that their quarterback's like 37 years old. They've got some talent. The fact that this game is at noon, I think we were talking about it earlier, definitely helps Ohio State. You don't get that whiteout effect, that amplification that Happy Valley tends to bring. I know Michigan went down there a couple years ago. It was an 8:00 kick, and that whiteout really made a difference. So the fact that it's a noon kick, I think definitely advantage Ohio State. This will probably be one of the better, although they're ranked 63rd, it'll be one of the better defenses, specifically secondaries, that Ohio State would see. I know Notre Dame put a test to them in week 1, but they've kind of fallen off the plateau there. So I agree. QB1, I think that the number is ridiculous. Ohio State's definitely going to go in there and win because there's definitely been Saban-like adjustments at halftime that Ryan Day has been able to do, kind of kickstart his team. Whether or not he's playing episodes of Yellowstone in the locker room during halftime remains to be seen. But I like Penn State to put up a fight. Ohio State will go in there and win, and they'll just keep on rolling. They'll find a way. I don't know about 16 though. That's pretty high.
Big number. All right, Robbie Davis.
Yeah, I'm taking the other side. I think this isn't high enough of a number. I think Ohio State rolls. Look, they're just better. They're better coach. James Franklin is getting into kind of this Jimbo Fisher kind of realm of, you did great at one school, now you come to this other school with more pressure, and what have you really done? He wins the games he's supposed to. He'll make an upset every once in a while, but overall, can you say this James Franklin era at Penn State's been a success? Look, they haven't won their division. Just that's enough. They haven't won their division in what, 8 years or something now.
They won the Rose Bowl, what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
Am I wrong about that? Possibly I am wrong. Maybe I'm not giving him credit. Maybe he did get to the Rose Bowl. It was Saquon Barkley, right? Was that the year?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. So he has won a division. Apparently he's won a conference championship. So sorry, James. Reckless speculation. But No, I mean, I just think Ohio State's a lot better. I think, yeah, if it was a night game, I'd give the Penn State crowd a little bit more credit. But I think Ohio State rolls in this one. They're just they're gonna be on a mission to show they're one of the top 4 teams in the country the rest of the way out.
Mr. Buckeye.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Robbie. You just look at the eye test here. We're way more talented on both sides of the ball. And again, it wasn't going back to Tom's quote, it wasn't taking something out of Ryan Day's playbook, just try and beat him. It's Woody Hayes. And after he went for 2, when we were beating the crap out of one of our foes, it was, why did you go for 2? He said, because we couldn't go for 3. And, you run the score up on teams that you just absolutely hate. Penn State's one of those that I hate. I don't know if they're going to run the score up on them, but I think 16 is too low. I think they come in and make a statement here. Has to be at this point, this late in the game. You're about to get to the playoff rankings. There's no holding back at this point. And, everybody doesn't like James Franklin. So
2016, he lost the Rose Bowl. So he won the Big Ten and lost the Rose Bowl.
It just, I mean, so, and we can play back strength of schedule and all this stuff for the rank based on your rankings of where you're at on offense and defense and all that. That all plays a factor. Apparently it doesn't to some people. And so Penn State, 63rd in defense, 49th in offense. So they're going to have to put up some points because we will. We're number 2 in the country in offense, number 4 number 2 in defense, and number 4 in offense, according to certain sites. We'll see.
All right, last game. And I will go ahead and get my opinion out of the way. I'm scared to death for this game. I don't know why. It's kind of like Robbie said. We're playing with house money, and I could play with house money after Alabama or after Florida playing Alabama. I can play with house money next week against Georgia. I, as a fan, fear this game. I don't know why, but should take care of business. But, buddy, I'm a nervous wreck. So
it's the Purdue of the SEC. I mean, they could trip you up right here. You never know.
Look,
look, your offense is good. I mean, really good. They're number 1 total offense in the country, 571 yards per game. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous. Hendon Hooker is arguably the top candidate for Heisman. You got UK. Their defense is pretty good. That's going to be a little bit of the matchup there. I still think you're going to put enough points on the board to not have a problem with them. So I would still, treat this game with respect, but it's a game. If you stay fundamentally sound, Tennessee should win this game, no problem.
I think it'll be like the Kansas State game. I think it all weighs on Martinez's health. How healthy is Will Levis? I know he's got a hand issue. He's gotten beat up all year. And we're talking about a quarterback that some say is the most NFL ready. I don't know if I believe that, but how healthy will Will Levis be? And if he's healthy and he's ready to sling it downfield, that could make it a little bit more dicey. But I think you look at the situation offensive wise, Tennessee's going to put the points up. Can Kentucky match? I don't see it unless Will Levis is just having a showcase NFL type game and nobody's covering. They're getting no pressure from the Tennessee defense. But I just don't. I think, is Hillman coming back? Your number 1 receiver will he be back? Even if he's not, Tennessee has proven that they've got enough weapons at the receiver position to match with anybody in the country. So Tennessee should be able to win this one.
Yeah, this is who can make the other play out of their comfort zone, and this is where Tennessee's offense has been brilliant all year long. Is they have made people play out of their comfort zone, and they've put the pedal to the metal, and they've stretched them out. And look, Kentucky's averaging 26.4 points a game. Tennessee's averaging 50.1. Now, that comes into play about pace of play and can Kentucky slow down. Last year in Lexington, I think Tennessee only held the ball for 13 or 18 minutes of the game and put 50 on them. So it's a matchup kind of look. If you want to run the ball, it's fine. Our defense, yeah, they're not good because they're on the field a lot. But unless they can stop Tennessee, it's going to be a long night. Look, it's night in Neyland Stadium, a blackout, Halloween weekend. It's going to be rocking. I'm not worried about this game.
Well, if you look at the defensive ranking, like UK's ranked 14th, Alabama's 15th in total defense allowed. So, I mean, it's going to be somewhat similar on that aspect of it, but the offense is completely lopsided versus Kentucky and Alabama. So just statistically looking at it on paper, I mean, this should be a no-brainer.
I can wake up Sunday morning and have lost to Georgia and go, well, we lost to the best team in the country. We're still going to be in the playoffs more than likely. We just got to get ready for the playoffs. I hate Kentucky. I cannot wake up Sunday morning and go, we lost to Kentucky during the best run we've had in 20 years.
Georgia, best team in the country based on resume of who they played and beat, or best on rankings? Again, you can make an argument for both sides of that.
Yeah.
Keep in mind why they don't lose this game. Coaching. Josh Heupel is the difference
Absolutely.
maker. He is the difference maker.
And I believe it's a factor. So
that makes a difference.
All right, guys, that does. And I didn't give my bet your nuts because my bet your nuts is going to be outside of those games. But I did want to take a moment. It's getting late in the show. We had a text chain this week about what's right in sports. And even Brandon said it. Oftentimes it's really sad stories that makes the right about sports come out. But I sent everybody a chain out and I said, just find something that is right about sports. And I'm going to start, and I'm just really proud to tell this story as a Tennessee Vol. And as a alumni that follows all these Twitters, and when I've seen these in times, in the last 3 months, last year, they've been 3 different Twitter drives that were sponsored by Tennessee alum or members of Tennessee football, or in one case, it was for a basketball player. And it is one thing to raise money for a cause at your school. To me, it was another thing what happened this weekend. To start with, during last year's season, Jason Swain, a former Vol for Life, started a campaign and raised through the Tennessee Twitter, through his Twitter, $102,000 that went to the East Tennessee Children's Hospital to match out the sellout crowd of Neyland. They raised $102,455 to benefit children of need in the area. We're all familiar with the Zakai Ziegler GoFundMe after his family's house burnt down in the Bronx. Now with NIL, the school could actually release and be involved in a GoFundMe. They raised $300,000. And if you haven't seen the video of Zakai and his family, They left New York City, moved to Knoxville, was able to buy a home, able to give some of the money to charity. Um, really emotional for his family to have a new home after a fire destroyed their house. And this weekend, there was a young man from Martin whose family um, had lost his home to the hurricane recently. AJ Marquez, and quietly he had started a GoFundMe to help his family. And somehow, Danny White, the athletic director, got tagged in something, and he retweeted it with basically a challenge. We always talk about, a university is more than a football program or whatever. It's more that it just, well, I think it was 4 words. He said, "What about it, Ball Nation?" And they raised $85,000 to rebuild his family home.
Wow.
In a matter of 24 hours. And I kept looking for AJ on the sidelines at the Martin game, and I never did get to see him. His father later posted some very heartfelt words, but I was very proud of Vol Nation. Just simply a few words, do your thing, raise this money. And my university and its football fans immediately responded. And that's one of the things right about all the jokes you hear about Tennessee football, throwing the mustard, throwing the golf balls, been a loser for 25 years. I really think my state, my people, my home, the place I'll die, when people are in need, we will rally like no other. So, the Tennessee sports, athletics, thank you. And for the Marquez family, there's a piece of you with a bunch of balls right now. What's right about sports?
Don't call it the Volunteers for nothing.
Yes. Who would like to go next? Tom.
I'll go. So this is a story I remember seeing a couple years ago. I had a couple that I grew up on the chat. This one I remember watching on ESPN. It was SEC Storied, a documentary, and it's an example of how two people come together in the most heartfelt ways, we'll say. It's a story of Chucky Mullins and Brad Gaines. Back in 1989, Chucky Mullins played for Ole Miss. Brad Gaines played for Vanderbilt. He was a tight end. Chucky Mullins was a defensive back. This game's played at Ole Miss. There's a play up the middle, thrown to Brad Gaines. He catches it or tries to catch it at the goal line. Chucky Mullins makes an unbelievable defensive play. Well, in the process of making the hit, he breaks his neck and he's paralyzed. This is where sports, the beauty of it comes into play. Brad Gaines basically wears that baggage, we'll say, of he felt responsible for him being paralyzed. Long story short, Brad Gaines makes it maybe his life effort to become friends with Chucky Mullins, and he kind of walks the path with him, we'll say. They become best of friends. Unfortunately, Chucky Mullins loses his life 11 years later to blood clots in his lungs. So it's a path. Two people come together in an injury, devastating injury. So what caught my attention is every year on Chucky's birthday and Christmas and all the holidays, Brad Gaines goes to his gravesite, cleans his gravesite, and he honors him that way. And that story hit me. It just showed that, you know what, two teams battling out after one another, and no one ever really stops to think about, these players get wheeled off injury. What happens? There's this story there, and this story was so beautiful. And I put it on the thread, and I was watching it today, and just shows you how there's humanity in sports, and it's not always rivalries and hatred. And there's something to be said about, and mind you, they never crossed paths at all. They never crossed paths at all. And during the funeral, one of the things that they talked about in the documentary was the team basically came together. They went to the funeral. They noticed Brad Gaines walking down the street, and they invited Brad Gaines onto the Ole Miss bus to go with them to the funeral. And it just like they welcomed them into their world. And he was forever grateful for that. But just we're all, men, we're tough. This documentary is if you're not shedding tears, if you're not getting welled up, Rich Jasper would definitely be teasing me right now. Then you're not a human being, because it's just such a beautiful story how two people just that never knew each other, and because of just a terrible moment in time, they become best friends, and who knows, maybe their friendship kept Chucky Mullins alive a little bit longer than he would have. But just definitely a documentary I highly recommend. It's called It's Time, and it's on ESPN Plus. Beautiful story, like of humanity in sports. It's well worth the watch. You'll enjoy it.
I believe I just posted it on the River City Media site. So,
it's great. It's great.
So, yeah, and I've watched that. It's very moving. Brad Gaines' life was impacted. You never think about the other person.
Yeah. And Brad Gaines didn't hit him. Chucky Mullins was the one that hit him, and he felt the weight of that consequence, and he still does to this day. It's incredible.
Brandon Chain, would you like to give your
lighten it up, Brandon?
No. So I've got a couple little on the happier side stories. One was formal Ohio State linebacker Ryan Shazier. That story,
that is
with his spinal cord injury, was paralyzed, told he'd never walk again, and that moment he walked across the stage, for the Steelers in the draft was pretty epic. And just the perseverance and, just a great heartfelt story. Unfortunately, obviously he's walking again. Obviously he wanted to be back in football, but just didn't come that far. Another one that did
moment is priceless when he makes that pick for the
Steelers. It definitely is. And it's one of my favorite stories, just for perseverance and how the Steelers organization treated that whole situation. I think they even paid his next year's salary, which was pretty incredible, something they didn't have to do, obviously. But just a really good, heartfelt story. If you haven't read about it or looked it up, check that out. And then another one,
the 18 draft, the Ryan Shazier making the pick is posted on River City Media.
Yeah, that's a good one. Another one of my favorite ones, this will hit home for you, UT Vols, is Eric Berry. What perseverance this guy had in his whole athletic career. Had a great high school career, was number 4 in the country, gets drafted or goes to UT. I mean, just an incredible college career. Gets drafted by the Chiefs. Second season, tears his ACL. And we all know how hard that is to come back from, especially a little earlier in the years. And comes back, makes a Pro Bowl, and then playing well, then gets diagnosed with cancer, Hodgkin's lymphoma. And within 7 months, he's back on the field, like back in the locker room practicing. Perseveres through the adversity, beats cancer, comes back and makes not one but two Pro Bowls in consecutive seasons, which is pretty incredible. And just the perseverance there in that story as well. Obviously he retired in 2018, but man, what a comeback story when you're faced with cancer and potential death, and just battle through it, and then not only come back and play in the NFL, make Pro Bowls, and make your team that much better. It's pretty incredible. So those are my two feel good stories, make you feel a little better.
Eric Berry was also a close friend of a legendary Tennessee motivational speaker, and a very good story. And made the all-decade NFL team despite only playing 7.5 years.
Yep, 5-time Pro Bowler.
Yes,
dude was legit.
Again, just a great player. Robbie Davis, you're the
yeah. So, and on top of that, Eric Berry, shout out. If any of our audience, any of you guys, have not heard a former Vol, Inky Johnson, speak, go on YouTube and listen to him speak. He was a first-round draft pick that he hurt his shoulder and essentially lost control of his left arm. One of the last games he ever played, and then never got to play in the NFL, but he's a motivational speaker. Fantastic. So when this topic came up, I was like, I want to talk about Kobe and Gigi Bryant. I was like, well, can't get through that without crying, so I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to talk about some bigger things of what happens that sports, and you look at the money raised for what the NFL does and sports do for breast cancer in this month of October.
Good point.
Just this huge outreach. And then now this whole end racism. And then Randall touched on Zakai Ziegler and, giving, the fans giving his house. And all that's great. But now I want to touch on something that's more global that sport has brought to our attention. And that's Brittany Griner and her situation in Russia. And it's not whether she broke the law or not. It's whether, don't take for granted the due process that we get here. And so that punishment was predetermined before there was a guilty verdict or not in the appeal process. And look, sport and her profile and the profile in the world, I ultimately do think is going to get her out of jail. It's going to come at a cost for America and the safety, but at the same time, it's important to do what's right. And that's kind of this balance that we're fighting with. And the WNBA, the NBA, they're all putting that into this spotlight, right? And because this is what happens, because there's Americans all over the world that are imprisoned unjustly because they don't have the same laws we have. And people, I'm going to go, and she obviously made a mistake, and I don't, either she knew or she should have known, but there's kids that go out and hey, I'm going to go party somewhere, or I'm going to do something, not knowing that, I'll give you an example. Qatar, however you pronounce it, or however you want to pronounce it, they're having the World Cup here in 30 days, 25 days. It's illegal to consume alcohol in that state.
Wow.
There's going to be Americans that are coming over there, and they're going to think it's okay to go to the hotel lobby and drink alcohol. It's not. That's imprisonment. And so just this kind of light sport can show on the whole global spectrum about just, it's important to research where you're going, know where you're going, and be safe, because a simple mistake here in the States could end up with horrible consequences somewhere else. And so just be smart and don't ever take things for granted.
You know, this is why I love that show. That's so well put. And I didn't know where you were going at first, but that is so well put. And she does, as an American citizen, everybody needs to come home.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you support or not, but the message is bring her home.
So she's in a Moscow prison now. Now that the pill's gone, she's going to a penal camp, which is going to be a whole lot worse. And from all accounts, Putin's holding her till after the midterms. And then they're going to start negotiating. But that's a whole different. I'm not educated enough on international prison trade to know that, but that's just what I've been reading. But things are going to get bad before they get better for her.
Absolutely.
We have a local guy, Paul Whelan. He's not too far from where I live. He's imprisoned in Russia, wrongfully considered him a spy, which is nonsense. I know he's definitely been in the negotiation along with Brittany Griner to come home. So yeah, you're right. There's Americans all over the world that fall victim to not really knowing rules and customs of other countries. And I think the one thing can be said is, you can't take for granted some of the freedoms that we have in this country compared to other countries.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, here, if it's a marijuana substance, a marijuana, liquid or whatever it is,
completely legal here in Michigan.
Yeah,
you drive down the road. You drive down the road, and there people are smoking it. You can smell it coming out of other cars. It is completely legal here, but for her, she's 9-year sentence in a prison colony. That's just
yeah, it
is. Good, great points, and I'm glad we can use sports to highlight that.
Absolutely.
Another week to switch to the closing segments of the show now, but we need to, and that closing segment is called "Bet Your Nuts," and Rod, I believe, named this. So he's not here, so appropriately, let's bet our nuts. So the first one I want to touch on two different ones. I got games, 2 college football games that make the lines make no sense to me. One is West Virginia and TCU. While it's at Moulin Puskar Stadium in West Virginia, I'm going to lay 7.5 and take TCU. The other one is Notre Dame and Syracuse. And this is at Syracuse. Minus 2.5. I'm going to take Syracuse, lay the 2.5 against Notre Dame. That Syracuse has played really well. And we saw last week that Syracuse is actually a really well coached, really good football team. I'm going to take Syracuse and lay the 2.5.
Except when they need to, call a timeout in the fourth quarter and they let 30 seconds run off the clock. But we won't go there.
We won't go there. All right. For that, Tom, you're up next.
All right. Well, I got 2 like you did. And I hinted on it earlier in the show. Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Kansas State, a 1.5 favorite. Like I said earlier, I like Oklahoma State. I think they've kind of proven that they're a team that can go on the road and win. They've got some good wins. So I'm going to take Oklahoma State plus 1.5 and the over, which is 56.5. And then we're going to go to Happy Valley, Penn State. Penn State plus 16. So I'm going to take Penn State to cover. Ohio State's going to win, though. And I'm going to take the under of 61.
I like those. I'm gonna take. So my balls are rolling, man, and I'm taking them minus 12.5. I don't think Kentucky has the offense to keep up with them. It's gonna be a night game. Needham's gonna be rocking. I like Vols minus 12.5. Backup game. If you don't like that and you want to get so daring, I like Michigan to win. I do think Sparty keeps it closer than 22, though. I see maybe a 20-point game. That's a lot of points in this matchup. So I like Michigan State plus 22.
I'm going to take it over to the NFL first here. I've got two as well. NFL, we're going to go Giants versus Seahawks here. The Giants are rolling right now, 6-1. Who would have thought? But they also have the best running back in the league in Saquon Barkley, and you still suck at fantasy. But they're getting 3 points here coming in Seattle. Seattle's 4-3. I still, man, I'm all over these Giants until they prove me wrong. Every time I bet against them, they prove me wrong. So I'm going with them this time. Giants plus 3. And my second one is going against Tom. Ohio State definitely covers 16 points. We're going to win by at least 3 touchdowns. This game is in the bag. Bet your nuts on that. Let's go.
All right, guys. I will go first on our last word. This is my last words of the night. Tell me how good that looks.
Is that the unis they're wearing?
Yeah, they're awesome.
That
looks
is
just like Ohio State's, except we have red where your orange is.
That is the dark mode.
But you don't wear it on Halloween weekend, which makes it awesome.
That's also true.
And you know, this looks like the Great Pumpkin. That is my final words. Go out and buy yourself one of those. Look, and we're wearing black helmets with it. That's what I like the most.
That is fire, as the drip is fire, as the youngsters will say.
Hey, I just recently learned what drip meant. Someone said they had some good golf drip, and I was like, "What the hell is that?"
Drippy. That is drippy.
That ain't
usually when I hear that, it's like a leaky faucet or something going on. I got to fix. So
I could have no more better closes in comments than that. Who's next?
Yeah, my last words are
these.
Look, guys, I know it's a struggle. Football season's going on, baseball season's going on. We got basketball starting. I've even been looking at Tennessee basketball scrimmages. I've been looking how they played Michigan State recently. Word is Tennessee beat Michigan State in the scrimmage, but nothing official. But yes, Sunday is the NASCAR race. It is in Martinsville. We have
worried about NASCAR right there.
We have Joey Logano, we have Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, and William Byron. They're in the Final Four. I got a pre-season bet on Chase Elliott, so even for me, it's getting tough to keep up with it. I do keep clicking back and forth. So yeah, if y'all can root for Chase Elliott, get me a little Vegas cash going on. Maybe I can turn into more money. But those are my final words: is don't forget about NASCAR.
All right, Brent.
Everyone's like, yeah, we've already forgot about it.
With all your complaints about scheduling conundrums, and you're talking about NASCAR
I can go off on NASCAR too. Yes, they're the worst of the worst.
Let's not forget about NASCAR though, because we want to bet on it.
They actually race on Sundays against the NFL during their playoffs. They're the worst. Baseball's like miniature mistakes versus NASCAR mistakes.
Final words. Ohio State definitely covers, and I believe Michigan covers as well. I think these are by far the two best teams, and I think, as bad as it pains me to say, which actually it doesn't. Let me step back for a second. So Big Ten football is better when Michigan and Ohio State are really good and they play each other at the end of the year. There's no question about it. So I want Michigan to be at their best when they come to the shoe and we beat the crap out of them. I do. So I don't want no hiccup games. I want you guys, and I think you are. I think you're going to cover, and I think we cover as well. So, battle royale. Let's do it. I'll be there. I might even do a little live video or posting or something going on. So, looking forward to it.
Well, my final words today are we'll go back to the rivalry here in the state of Michigan. It's always fun, and and this year's been extra special because both schools had a bye week. So for 2 weeks, we've had to listen to the bantering back and forth. But make no mistake, Michigan State has always found a way to make this a pretty tough game. Last year, they win when they probably shouldn't have. There's been games where Michigan, there was a particular game, within the last, I think it was 10 years or so ago, Michigan was down by like 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. They score 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, highlighted by Braylon Edwards' ridiculous catch in the corner of the end zone to win the game when, frankly, I remember turning that game off in the third quarter and found out that they were in the mix of it. So obviously the punt mishap when God only knows what Michigan was thinking by not having anybody on the outside. They were playing for them to return it. Nobody was back returning it. Michigan State blocks the punt. The rest is history. 5 years ago. So this is definitely going to be a game. I don't put it past Michigan State to come into the big house and give Michigan a little bit of a run for their money. But let's just face it. I hate Michigan State. Tuck can go hit the Ohio Turnpike and head out west for all I care. But that's the fun in
a boatload of money.
That's the fun in this rivalry. I've got friends that are diehard Spartan fans. I've got relatives that go there, and they give me shit. I give them crap, and but that's the fun of it, especially living here in Michigan with 2, Big Ten decent teams. So it's alive and well. Go Blue. The hell with Tuck. He don't know. Tuck's going.
My other takeaway is, Tom, when are we going to schedule my one-on-one interview with you being a Lions fan? That's what I want to know when that's going to happen.
Well, we could do that like you guys did the
Storm in Neyland.
Storm in Neyland.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I get back from Vegas, we're doing that.
The breakdown of a Lions fan. Yes, it is a depressing story. You might get your Prozac quickly at hand after this story. So yeah, we'll have to do that.
Where Brandon and I grew up, a guy named Tracy Hayworth was a defensive lineman, I think, during the Barry Sanders era, and he would get us tickets. He knew my parents, and he'd get us tickets when they played in Atlanta, and I loved Barry Sanders, but yeah, they always lost as usual, even with that stud of a running back. Yes.
The Ford family is death to the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
That's all that can be said about that.
Well, I had to delete some things just so I could bring up a different looking picture. So that's hot, man. That's so. So, all right, we will schedule up the Detroit Lions with Robbie Davis and Tom. Y'all
you got to call it Depression of Detroit. I mean,
the Detroit
just go with that.
Yep.
Or yeah.
We've it's been next year since '57, so to look at the reality is during the '50s, who are the powerhouses in football? Cleveland and Detroit. Who hasn't been to a Super Bowl? Cleveland and Detroit. So we have a saying here. Next year, since 1957. So
Well, listen,
I'm so intrigued by this. I want to know everything about it.
You haven't won since I've been alive. Like
1957 was the last time they won a football championship.
Hey, so I'm gonna throw this stat out to close, and we'll close out. Texas A&M hadn't won a national championship in 84 years. That doesn't even seem even possible for a school like A&M. And I saw that one today, and I was like, wow, makes 24 years seem small. So 84 years and counting for Texas A&M. No wonder they're buying recruiting classes.
Well, no, I mean, it's fine, but I heard reporters legitimately on there saying they're really thinking about paying $95 million to buy him out.
Especially after what just happened. 3 players caught smoking marijuana in the locker room.
Yeah, that's losing like $95 million to pay someone not to coach. Insane.
But it could happen.
In an SEC school, it can happen. Yeah.
And in a school that has oil money. For Tom, we had a new name today. For QB1 and the boys, we out.